if you try to forget about all the other requirements just because they're beautiful, you'll suffer. Oh my God. That will be terrible. But if you just keep your heart open and just say, hey, you know what? Whatever this is supposed to be will make itself evident. The truth speaks constantly, even if subtly.
That's a clip from this interview with my friend Anam Paiseanta, and we're going to be talking about real estate. Well, in at least the premise of the interview is about real estate, but actually what we're talking about is the structure of one's emotions and values. So we talk basically about how real estate was a kind of expression of the attitudes, mentalities that Anam had developed over the years. We get into that and explore it, talking about the proper role of intellect and emotions, how it relates to motivation and problem solving, how helping people helped him build his confidence or like step outside himself, identity in relation to emotions, whether we need to identify with our emotions, and also about how all of this actually applied to his romantic relationships as well. So we're going to get into that in a second. It's interesting to notice how precise Anam is with his language. So maybe you've heard this quote, the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper names. Well, the older stylization of that quote is actually, if the names be not correct, then language is not in accordance with the nature of things. Again, it's important to be precise. This quote from Confucius, actually. So I hope you enjoy this interview. If you want to get early access to a whole bunch more episodes that I'm uploading onto Patreon, go ahead, go to beautifulpodcast.com. You see at the top the link to the Patreon, and for $3 a month, you can get early access to a whole bunch more content. Let's begin.
This is a beautiful thought.
I'm here with my friend Anam Paiseanta, and he's going to tell us a story about how he got into real estate investment and the problems that he overcame with that and how he helped people in the process. How are you, Anam?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Yeah, great. Good to see you. So you were in this situation, like the story begins when you owned a house and you weren't owning it as a real estate investment or anything. What happened?
So I was living in this house as just a consumer, the way most people own homes, and decided that I wanted to move from Central Washington to Las Vegas, Nevada. And at the time, the real estate market there was slow, and my neighborhood was particularly slow for sales. And so I had tried to sell the house myself, just for sale by owner sign in the front yard and an ad in the newspaper. And I had no luck. And so I decided to use a realtor. And he also had no luck in selling my house or even really attracting much attention. He would come and do open houses every Saturday and sit there in the house and not really see much action. So I decided that I would have to do it on my own, but that I would have to figure out a trick. I've always, and I know you're the same way, most anarchists are, but we think that there's some hidden path behind most things, that we're offered a this or that, but in reality, there's always a third option, you know?
Right.
And in real estate, it's quite the same. Your options are not only for sale by owner or use a realtor. There is also all these techniques that investors use. So it's not seen because it's outside of the sphere of retail consumers. But what I decided to do was go to the bookstore and get all these books on real estate investing techniques. And in the process, I learned one technique in particular that's called lease with option. And what a lease option is it, without getting too technical, I know this is not a real estate show, but what it is it allows someone to come and move into the house immediately and lock a price in for purchase. And then they can actually have 2 years or 3 years, whatever you decide on, to complete the purchase. But they can move in basically today. They'll put a small down payment, which is called an option fee. They are now the only ones who can buy the house at that price for that duration. And so I decided to put my house for sale with lease option. And
so how did you find out about this process? Because that's like a lot of people, for starters, I guess they wouldn't even think, oh, there must be another way. They wouldn't even get that far, and they wouldn't know what to do even if they did have that realization. So what was your process then?
Well, my mindset is always that there's a hidden third way. We're always offered a this or that, and they're usually control mechanisms. And there's always
How do you mean control mechanisms?
Well, for example, you're offered Republican or Democrat, and like in the United States where I am now, right?
Yep.
And we know those are both two gloves of the devil. We know that the third way, not voting for a ruler, not trying to rule over your neighbor, instead choosing the path of peace and voluntary interactions, we know that is actually the correct path, right? As far as a path towards a more civilized and developed society. But those aren't the ones we're offered. We're offered Coke or Pepsi, not some special spring water or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I mean by that, is that the two options that are seen and easy and accessible are usually not the best.
Control mechanism, just to keep you in line. Don't ask questions. Do what we say. And other people have the control, and you have to let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Your behavior is within tight parameters,
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that and thinking, oh, okay, if I'm not having results here, I have to do something different. And so I went to the bookstore and I got like this pile of books, right? And I mean, the real estate investing techniques were many. So, I mean, they're ranging from like doing closed bid auction style sales and doing like contract of sales where you act as the bank and you actually charge an interest rate, and then you would get like, have to report to the government interest-based earnings at the end of the year and all that sort of thing. Like there's all these different techniques on how to sell a property, and only two are known, right? Sell it yourself or sell it with a realtor. But anyway, in amongst those books, maybe 10 books, there was one by Peter Conti and David Finkel called, appropriately, How to Buy Nice Houses in Beautiful Areas with Little or No Money Down. With no money down and no cash or credit, something like that. In that interview that we did from the villa, the way I acquired that house was actually with a lease option.
Sorry, which house?
The house that we spoke about when you and I were at the villa in Acapulco.
Okay. Not the one we were staying in.
No. Oh, I'd love to. I'll have to talk to him about that.
Right.
But
I think Jeremy Waits owns it now.
But it turned out to be the sensible solution for how I would sell this house in Central Washington. And it worked. It worked because when you sell a house on a lease with option, you increase the size of your audience from just people who have a bank loan ready to go to now include all of those people plus people who may have a bank loan ready to go in the next 2 years. Right? So your demand goes up, but you still are selling only one house. So, economics, when the demand goes up and the supply stays the same, the price goes up. So I ended up getting more money for the house, and I didn't have to pay a realtor. The cool thing about this transaction was not that I was able to move and do my other goals, and not that I made more money, but that I was able to sell the house to this Alaskan fisherman who made a lot of cash, but the banks didn't want to lend to him because he only worked 3 months out of the year every year.
All right. Yeah.
He's technically unemployed for 9 months of the year. But he made something like $80,000 a year, right?
Right.
So the banks had these requirements for their loan program. He was able to move into my house straight away, complete those loan requirements, get that list all checked off, and then get his bank loan in order to have the actual sale go through before the 24 months that we agreed on. So afterwards, realizing what had happened there, that I solved my own problem. That's great. But I also solved the problem for this guy who would not have been able to buy a house for his family because of his unique situation that banks, there's always somebody like that doesn't fit into the cookie cutter mold that banks have or governments have or schools have, right?
Yes.
And if
I think you and I are both in that situation now.
100%, man, like 100%. Yeah. But if we can figure out ways to serve those people, then, we can become successful business people and also make the world better. And so having that realization after the transaction with this guy, I decided that, I kind of realized how it was win-win. And that as an anarchist, as a voluntarist, that attracted me so much. So I decided to do it again, to try to go find a house to get into and then sell it to someone on a lease with option. And
let me ask you something.
Yeah.
During that first sale, was there ever a point where you had doubt, or you thought maybe this isn't going to work, or you got frustrated, or you just barreled right through and said, I know it's going to work out?
Well, I think there's a place for emotions.
Yeah.
Speaking of buyers, house buyers, there's one calling me right now. But they'll have to go on hold for a moment. I've got a project in Central Washington again that I'm selling, but
cool.
No lease options available this time.
All right.
But I think that there's a place for emotions, but in technical issues, they're best served by the intellect.
So you have this mindset where you're just like, okay, well, I might have this doubt, but I don't need to worry about it, because what I really need to do is focus on the solution. It's
more like it's not ignoring, it's more like compartmentalization. In that I recognize and observe that I'm having an emotion, but I realize that it doesn't actually have a place in the solving. I've always thought about the dichotomy of emotion and intellect.
Yeah.
And that they work best together when they do their respective roles, but not each other's. So I think of the emotional intelligence of a person as the motor, like the motor of a car.
Yeah.
And then I think of the intellect as the steering wheel. And without either, you're going nowhere. And with just one, if you have only your emotions, imagine a car without a steering wheel and just a fast engine, you're going to wreck into a wall, Yeah. And if you have, as so many people do, intellect but no emotions, you can make decisions but never execute on those decisions because you don't have the passion or the drive to do it. Okay. So I think it's important to put them both in their respective roles and try to be balanced.
You would compartmentalize the doubt, but maybe the drive or the excitement or intuition or something else was pushing you forward and still within that frame.
Well, I would just say that I had this task to complete and that I would let my feelings do motivational things, because that's the role of feelings, right? And emotion is a call for motion. And so if I had doubt, then I would make sure my numbers were correct.
Okay.
If I had excitement, then I would make sure I was doing the necessary steps to get my results quicker.
Yeah.
You see, like the emotions tell the brain, hey, you need to do something differently, or you need to do something more.
Yeah. So it's like all of these emotions come together. Everyone is sort of moving you forward a little bit more.
They're all there. Yeah. But they can't be used. They can't be used to solve problems. They can only be used to motivate you. Your intellect has to solve problems, and it cannot be used to motivate you. So if the options are figure out or freak out, I tend to try to calm it down, come back to reality, back out a little bit and like get perspective, and then choose the destination, draw a line from the destination back to where I am right now, and then start taking those steps. Kind of like you would design your route to go to the supermarket. You know what I mean? You don't get in your car and start driving around until you see a supermarket. You know where the supermarket is first, kind of draw a line mentally in your head back to where you are, and then reverse route until you see it, So I think that's the way, I think it's the best way to design, like design your path with the destination in mind. So I think in my real estate investing, it's kind of always been that way.
Okay. Yeah, that's very cool. All right. So what happened next?
Well, I did move down to Las Vegas and immediately started looking at houses and finding, I realized straight away that dealing with people that have no problems is a different category completely than people who have a problem to solve. So if I would look, as a voluntarist, and I want to make voluntary interactions, I have to attract people by adding value, right? There's no coercing or voting on how they act. So that played into my real estate investing, because I quickly learned that if someone would call me from my billboard or my signs around town or whatever, and they'd say, hey, come by my house, I would ask them these qualifying questions like, does it have curb appeal? And are you late on the payments? Does the house have any like deferred maintenance?
Sorry, what was that? You said curb appeal?
Curb appeal, like
looking from the street?
Yeah, exactly. That's like a term here in the States that means, is it attractive as you drive by? So because that's the first impression, right? The back of the house may be beautiful, but no one sees it until after they see everything else usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So curb appeal, are they late on their payments? Do they have a family situation that is making them motivated? Does the house have like deferred maintenance? If there's any sort of problems like that, then there's a role for an investor to play as a problem solver. And the cool effect on the investor that has, that perspective of going in and not trying to buy the house, but going in and trying to solve problems, is that you never have stage fright. Whenever I go in to talk to a seller, it's smooth and easy. And the reason is I'm not really thinking about me. So I have nothing to lose. I'm not thinking about me. I'm thinking about them.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of issues with confidence have to do with thinking about yourself too much.
Right.
It's a soft narcissism to even lack confidence. It means you're thinking about yourself too much. Yes.
Well, I imagine like a young man walking into a nightclub, and if he has the mentality like, oh, what woman can I extract value from? Like, how can she make me feel like I'm complete for a moment? Whereas the guy who's like, I'm just going to have a good time, and people are going to have a good time with me. He doesn't care. He's having a good time regardless.
Yeah. And you talk to the people who want to talk to you.
Yes.
So you're serving them because they want to talk to you, right? And then, there's probably people who don't want to talk to you, and that's okay too.
Yes.
In my real estate investing, having these like voluntarist principles, and this is back in the year 2001, I believe. So I've been an anarchist-minded person for quite a while, but this idea of serving people and just knowing that the universe is going to, figuratively speaking, of course, that the universe is going to reward you for it, is has always proven to be true.
Yeah.
So I've just been, ever since then, I've just been looking for people who have problems in the realm of real estate and trying to solve their problems. And half the people who call me disqualify themselves because they'll say, when I'm asking them about the house, I'll say, hey, and the reality is I'm asking them about the house, trying to get them to tell me the truth about them. And so I'll I'll ask them these, questions about, does it have curb appeal, or what's your situation, or it sounds like a really beautiful house, why do you want to sell it? And if they tell me that the house has plenty of curb appeal, they're not late on their payments, they don't have deferred maintenance, there's no family problems, right? Then I discover that they don't really have a problem for a problem solver to work on. And so I'll refer them to someone who deals with retail properties.
Yeah.
Those are like realtors and that sort, right? And I won't even try to buy those houses because there's no real reason for me to get a good deal on the house. And if I can't get a discount when buying, what am I giving? If I'm getting a discount on a house that's all perfect, what am I delivering back to them? It's not really win-win if I'm getting the discount, but they're not getting anything extra from me.
All right. So you would it's like, if it seems like you're getting a discount for no reason, then you might say, well, maybe something's wrong, or,
I don't even get to that point. I don't even get to the point of a price.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Someone that has no problems, I just refer them straight away to someone in my network that deals with retail houses.
Got it. Okay.
Well, I need to, what I mean? I need to be, as far as efficiency goes, I need to be focusing on houses and people that need help.
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So it definitely seems to work out for you really well. Let's try taking a different direction. What if we go back to a point in your life where you didn't have these ideas, like going into situations where you're going to get a win-win outcome, and you didn't have that attitude of, I'm going to help people, I'm going to solve their problems. What was life like then? It might have been a long time ago, I imagine.
Yeah. I'm trying to go back, man, because I'm sure I've had, obviously I've had plenty of selfish moments.
Yeah.
I think that just every time I've tried to be selfish, I ended up getting less. I think everything balances out. And that at times when I have been selfish, and like I say, there's plenty, I've always felt hurt afterwards by a feeling of selling myself out. And then, what's a way to put it? I'm trying to really go back and feel one of those feelings again.
Yeah. Well, I imagine there's a kind of disappointment in yourself, like you didn't live up to the person you thought you were.
I think it's always that if I feel that the other person walked away from an interaction with like any kind of doubt that they got a good deal, then it haunts me. It really stays with me for a long time.
Right.
Of course, you can't control everyone's perception 100%, but if you do the things that you're supposed to do so that they, should, I use air quotes around that word should, but so that they should have a good feeling about your interaction, then I guess that's all you can do, right? There are people that are always going to feel victimized no matter how well you treat them. That being said, I always just have felt so much better when trying to give 110%. You know what I mean? Because I feel like when I give more, I get more. So not to sound all, this sounds like I'm trying to be all super virtuous or whatever, but the reality is, I guess my selfishness, which is all we ever act on, is selfishness. All altruism is actually selfishness. It's that helping others makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Your reward system is just written that way. So you go help people, makes you feel good. Well, for me, like scamming someone or even, inadvertently not delivering at least as much value as I got is serves me way less than helping the shit out of somebody and having them want to do the deal again. Or, I've had so many people. Friends. Yeah, exactly. I'm served that way also. Like, go tell your friends that I bought your house and you got more than you expected and it was easier than you thought and your problems are solved and now the weight is lifted. Go tell your friends that. So it's definitely selfishness, but, voluntarists realize that I'm going to serve my selfishness by scheming, not, not scamming, but scheming on different ways to help people.
Yes.
You know, like I got to get out there and find these people and help them.
Yeah. Yes. Can you go back in your mind to a specific time when you did feel like you were being haunted after maybe taking advantage or something like that?
Well, I wouldn't say that I ever like intentionally.
Sure.
Maybe as a kid or maybe in my teens, you know,
I used to do door-to-door sales, and I definitely did some things I'm not proud of, signing up old ladies or something. But maybe you never did that, did anything so bad, or in which case I'm glad.
Well, I did work at a call center once when I was in my teens. And it was selling tickets to the Fireman's Ball or something like this. And, you know, over the telephone, I started to doubt the legitimacy of the endeavor after being in the call room and observing the guys in the office.
Yeah.
They seemed kind of shifty. So I ended up quitting that job because of that. But, you know, to answer your question, nothing particular comes up.
Okay.
But still the sting of that disappointment and guilt feeling of like realizing that I had hurt someone, you know, and by hurt, I mean all places of the hurt spectrum. Sometimes it's just mild disappointment, but on the other end of it, it's like real hurt. You know what I mean? And I don't want to leave any interaction with the other person anywhere on that spectrum. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I'm imagining maybe that this isn't how it happened. But I imagine maybe you had a few of these interactions where you're disappointed or hurt, and then you reflected on them and you said, that's not who I am, and you made a decision about your identity. Is that how it happened, or is there some other mechanism?
I think there is something kind of like that happened probably I started to get the beginning of that in my early teens, but have, you know what I mean? And just think, wow, I didn't like that. But then you kind of let it go. And then another instance will happen a few years later and you're like, oh yeah, that's, you know, that outcome usually follows focusing on myself instead of focusing on others. And I don't like that outcome. And then some decisions, some even identity realizations do take years to solidify, it seems like.
Yes.
I've never really thought about it, but this, you know, talking with you now, I'm kind of realizing that. But there have been times when my own desires or fears inadvertently hurt other people, even into my 30s. I mean, who am I kidding? It probably happens still now, but I do. I mean, you know what I mean? Because I am living my life. I'm looking out of these eyeballs and living this perspective. But I know now that with my work on attachment, being able to disassociate, like detach and become a third person sometimes in the interactions that I have, I'm able to really do my best to be empathetic to the other side. And, you know, how that kind of translates in my real estate now is I like very clearly explain what the other party is going to get. And then I'll tell them, you know, if this doesn't work for you, you know, if the maximum I can do here isn't a fit, it's fine. I'll even help you find someone else that might be a better fit for what you're trying to do. You know, just tell your friends, you know, but because you know what I mean? Ultimately, like even if it's only in your mind, I think there is kind of a tally board that energetically is held somewhere, at least in your own mind, in the back of your mind. And I want to do my best to, this is another silly word, but I want to do my best to deserve a really good life and really good relationships. So, yeah.
Well, you said it's kind of a silly word. Well, is there a better way to say that?
The word deserves.
Yeah, I know it has problems.
It's a poetic way to say the way I think things. It's a poetic way to say the outcomes I prefer.
So it's like you're expressing, you're bringing this better world into existence, or how would you put it?
Well, how I would put it if I was speaking in a way that I prefer to, which is to retain all of responsibility. See,
Sure.
deserves is saying the universe or the way things ought to be.
Yeah.
There's some force outside of me that should make things turn out a certain way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm nice to everybody, then I deserve to have people be nice to me. Well, there is nothing outside of you that we can measure that makes things a certain way.
That's right. So it can, if we say deserve, it can create an expectation, and then we get frustrated when things don't work out.
It's ultimately disempowering because you're externalizing your responsibility. The reality is this: if you want a certain outcome, you have to work on it.
Right.
There may be deserves, there may be shoulds, there may be, rights, there may be all these other forces that all these other euphemisms for preferred outcomes. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like what we're really talking about, if we went ahead and like assumed the responsibility, I shouldn't even say assume it because it starts in us. If we didn't externalize responsibility, what we would say is that's my preferred outcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
So I guess I do my best to be aligned with my preferred outcomes. And so
let me ask you something though. What if there's a way to say this that makes it sound really cool?
Well, I guess that's why people made up like karma.
Yeah. I guess karma is kind of poetic. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, we don't know. I mean, we can't mutually measure a cosmic tally board that keeps track of everything we do and makes us have a bad day tomorrow if we weren't a good person today. I mean, it may be something in play, but it isn't something we can mutually measure. So I'm trying to correct my language now and speak about things that we can mutually measure, because any voluntary future that we create has to be based on mutually measurable things. I myself have beliefs that I can't prove, but when communicating with the larger audience, I try to be more secular in my speech.
Yeah, fair enough.
So if you want good karma, man, you have to be nice to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, karma is kind of a nice way of thinking about things. There's also many perspectives on karma, but I think, well, one way I might say it is, it's something like you have this vision of what the world could be, and you like every time you take an action, you try to bring the world a little more into alignment with that.
That's so true. And I can't sell it out, I can't sell it out for a temporary benefit. I want a world where, bridges are made not by everyone going, 45%. If the people building the bridge on this side and the people building the bridge on this side only put in, 95% of their side, there would never be bridges. They would always fall down because of no support in the middle. You know what I mean? So I think that I want to see a world where everyone gives a little extra. Yeah. And just tries to add extra value, knowing that it will attract the other party to come and be your business partner or your romantic partner or your friend partner in the future. Because there's no other way in a voluntary world. There's just no other way to have connections except to make people want to connect with you. And so what's that mean? You have to develop scenarios and personality and other attributes that attract people. So you basically have to be a value adder. So that's that. So that's, that's a world I want to see in the future. So that's the world I am trying to create, one transaction at a time. Yeah.
Great. I don't think I have any more questions. Well, is there something like out of this real estate thing, is there something that you learned, not just that applies to real estate, but something that applies to life in general?
Yeah, going back to having no stage fright, because when I enter a home and start talking to a house seller, I'm always calm because I'm not trying to gain anything. I know that I will gain something if I'm able to serve them.
Yeah.
So I don't even worry about it. And that gives me ultra confidence, or it looks like confidence.
Right. Really, it's just like a giving spirit or something.
It's just that there's a job to do, and that job is at the end of a sequence. And if that sequence doesn't occur, then I don't have to do the job. And if the sequence occurs, it's more like just the math. It's more like just the math. Here's the process. I go into a house. I say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, here I am, ready to see your house." We walk around the house for a while. They show me certain things around the house, and they keep talking about the house. I know I'm going to have to fix up the house, or you know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm ultimately going to have to do my own inspection to ascertain the condition. Mm-hmm. So when I'm walking around the house, it isn't to see the house so much, because I'm not really in the house solving problem. I'm in the people's problems solving job. That's my job. Not so much houses. Houses is where it takes place, but it's really solving problems for people. So I'm walking around this house. They're talking about the house because they think that's what it's about. I'm talking to them about them because I'm trying to allow them to tell me the truth. Once they feel enough rapport, they will tell me the truth about their problem. And when they tell me the truth about their problem, I can become effective. You see? Yes.
Okay. So it's all about focusing on the people, make the people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And the business will always go much more smoothly.
Yeah. And then, you know what I mean? If you find out there's not a deal there, then there's not a deal there. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really fake it. You can't really like kind of force it into be a deal.
Right.
I think people that do that spin their wheels a lot, and they end up hurting people because they're too tightly grasping to doing a deal.
Yeah.
And so they'll try to force the other party, or not force like physically force, but like try to push their effort into this one outcome that isn't probably going to happen because it doesn't serve the other party first. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that, to answer your question, I think that this experience and how I go and look at houses and talk to sellers translates to every relationship I have. And it's really helped me in my romantic relationships in the last 10 years, particularly, in that when you're in any kind of relationship, if you let the other person do what they want or be who they want, and then you just have to decide if it works for you, instead of saying, "Hey, will you do this? Will you do this?" Instead, just saying, "Hey, here's what I'm looking for. If you're not that, it's okay. We either have a match or we don't. We don't really have to force it."
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people will like see a girl and go, "She's beautiful. I want her to be all this other stuff I need for a romantic relationship." Instead of what you did is say, "Oh, here's a new person I'm meeting today. I have no idea what it's a fit for.
Yeah.
What our situations are a fit for."
Yeah.
If you try to forget about all the other requirements just because they're beautiful, you'll suffer. Oh my God. That will be terrible. But if you just keep your heart open and just say, "Hey, you know what? Whatever this is supposed to be will make itself evident. The truth speaks constantly, even if subtly. So don't be so focused on one outcome that you shut off your senses to what's really being told to you." Right?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? I know you know what I'm saying, Kurt.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're speaking to me. I like it.
Yeah, so that just being focused on seeing what's real instead of trying to make a situation into something. Knowing that I'm going to win no matter what, because all I'm trying to do is be the best version of myself, just be a little bit better than yesterday, and just try to serve people. And if there's someone in my life, friend, romance, business, whatever, that I can't serve, then we don't interact. I basically want everyone to walk away saying, "Wow, Anam's really cool."
Yeah. Well, I like what you said about every day being a better person. I remember I must have been, I don't know, 19 years old. And I just started to get into self-development stuff and reading these books like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and trying to build my confidence and this stuff.
Dude.
And I always remember this moment. I was ascending the staircase in my friend's home, and I just thought, if I just take little steps and I improve myself little by little, then I'm gonna figure out life, or I'm gonna. I don't know how I verbalized it, but I must have thought, something like, there's no limit on what I can become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? That you remind me of something else that I used to do that was this self-development exercise, but it didn't. You wouldn't think it was a self-development exercise, but we used to do in the summer times in Washington State. We would go jump off cliffs into the lakes, and so there's this threshold. I should say a ceiling. There's like a ceiling of height before you start to really feel a disabling fear.
Right.
Okay. At about 6 meters, you start to feel decent fear.
Yeah.
And I can remember jumping off of one cliff that was maybe 12 meters.
That's like, what is it? It's like 4 stories. 4 stories?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
The ones that were about 5 stories is where it goes from being exhilarating to that amount of fear actually will keep your body from jumping, right?
Right.
You'll get to the edge and then you just can't. It's like a force field almost.
Yeah.
So 5 stories would be maybe 16 meters. Yeah.
Mm.
There were cliffs there that were about that high. And I can remember doing this thing after experiencing that my mind would stop my body from jumping, that I would try to not like cancel the fear or get over the fear, but I would just put the fear, like observe it and recognize, okay, I have fear, but I'm going to have it in this little box. Okay. Because the mind, if you do this visualization, like if you can watch someone else jump first, right? Then the mind can put the body into motion and then go do something else. And so you can compartmentalize and then automate an activity. And so I would do this where I would either see someone else jump or I would envision jumping and splashing, falling and splashing, and then swimming back to the surface and getting back to the shore, right? And then I would, stand 3 steps out, observe that I have this fear, put the fear in a little box and just have the box, here, and then have the body do something separate than the mind.
Wow.
And then jump.
So it's almost not quite muscle memory, but it's like you imagine something and have this vision, and then you can just put yourself on autopilot, just like as if you'd done it thousands of times.
Well, no, it's not as if you've done it thousands of times.
No,
it's definitely not, because it's still, and it's not muscle memory because the body's still experiencing it for the first time. But it's just that the mind and the body are not, the brain and the body are the same thing.
Uh-huh.
The mind and the body are not.
Okay.
And it is possible for you to take this lesson, this example that I just illustrated, and apply it to other parts in your life where you can say, I have to go talk to this girl and I'm afraid to, right? But you can just say, well, I'm not afraid, but I have fear. But I also have excitement, and I also have attraction, and I also have personal interest, and I have all these other things as well. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you can just put all those things on a shelf in your mind while the body's walking over to talk to them.
Okay, so while you're in your mind putting this stuff on the shelf, your body's already started walking.
Yeah, I've done that so many times too, and it's not always graceful, but
no.
But it's always exciting.
Yeah.
I have people in, I teach real estate in Prima to other voluntarists.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a lot of them. So one of the exercises that they have to do to get their investing started is they have to put these little signs around town. And the little signs say, "We buy houses." And it's the purpose of the signs is to generate phone calls from people who need help. People who don't need help see those signs and it doesn't click, it doesn't register at all. But people who do need help will see those signs and eventually call the number, and that's when you can go help them. And so my students have to go put 10 signs a week, and then they'll call me back, or they'll text me back and say, "Yeah, but what if someone calls? I'm not ready, or I'm afraid, or what if?" And I go, "Hey, all that's fine. Be afraid.
Yes.
Go ahead and be afraid."
Yes.
While your body's putting the signs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Don't wait until you're not afraid. That's the point. Don't wait until you're not afraid.
Yeah.
Go ahead and have your fear. Indulge in it, because that's what it is.
Indulge it. It's
an attachment. Well, just recognize that, hey, this is a human experience. That's what I came here for. I'm doing these human things. I'm having human experiences. I'm afraid about what if someone calls from the sign, but I'm also excited about doing my first deal. I have all kinds of emotions, but the emotions are calls to motion, and so, but the brain is the steering wheel. So, have your fear while the body's putting signs. It's that simple.
Well, I did used to say to myself, so it might be kind of cheesy now, but I used to say, well, if you have fear, it's not necessarily a sign that something is wrong. It might actually be a sign that something awesome is about to happen.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because I have a friend that recently told me that the difference between anxiety, which is fear, and excitement is just your attitude.
Yeah.
It's literally just how much you want the outcome or know the next step. Because even on the way to a desired outcome, you might not know some steps, and that'll cause anxiety. So focusing on, understanding that the difference between fear and excitement is really just how much you want that outcome.
Right. Well, I remember there was even an experiment about this. I guess I'll have to be careful not to misquote too many details, but the premise was something like this, and this is before they had too many ethical standards in science. What they do is like inject people with adrenaline, and they say, all right, go into this room, and in this room there's either a bunch of people having fun, maybe dancing or singing or something, or in the other room there's like a bunch of people who are just nervous and don't know what's happening, looking around shiftily. And so the adrenaline is the motive there, but the context that they put it in makes this huge difference of whether this experience is positive or negative. So it's same physiological reaction, more or less, but a different context.
Yeah, truly. I think that's it's a good lesson, because most of the beautiful things in human life are on the other side of fear.
Right.
All the best things, man, are on the top shelf.
Go ahead and jump.
Yeah. So climb up there. And it's crazy also because there's actually less competition at the top.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons to go that extra bit. The biggest reason is that most other people aren't.
Yeah.
And so I recommend to people to learn how to not be afraid, because you're not afraid. It's not it's not a state of being. It's just an experience that you're having.
Yes. You don't like to identify with it.
Exactly. And like all possessions, you can set it down for a second. And you can even observe it. You can even indulge in it, right? Which is to indulge in something means to, consciously or intentionally experience it. while your body's doing the thing that you need to get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a good note to finish on. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish up?
I just want to tell your listeners that they should keep listening, because I know you, and I know the information that's on your podcast is going to be eye-opening and enlightening for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thanks very much. Is there anything you want to promote?
If anyone's interested in learning about time freedom and financial freedom, and you are a true voluntarist, then contact me on Facebook, Anam Paiseanta, and I'm a friend of Kurt's, and I can teach you about time freedom and financial freedom in Prima, which is Paiseanta's real estate mentoring for anarchists.
Sweet. Okay. Thanks so much, Anam.
Yeah, man. It's great to be with you.
A beautiful thought.
Thanks for listening. Now, if you listen to this interview again, or if you just think about this, reflect on it in the future, you might think just about how Anam is so clear in his values that it makes everyday decisions so easy for him. So many times when we don't know ourselves, when we don't know what's really important to us, we can paint ourselves into a lot of corners and we don't know what to do next, simply because we don't know what we want. Anam being so clear about his values and knows what's important to him, so he can be confident in that, in expressing that in many aspects of his life. So that's something for me to think about. I'd love to be more clear about my values like that, and I imagine a lot of people out there would be as well. Now, as I said at the top, if you want to get early access to other episodes, head on to beautifulpodcast.com, click the Patreon link at the top, and you can get access that way. If you feel like sharing this episode with a friend, maybe you just take 10 seconds to think about somebody who might enjoy this, who might get a different perspective of what confidence really is, and about helping people, or about examining their own motivations, then maybe you come up with somebody in your head and just send them a quick message and tell them, hey, I think this interview might benefit you because, and give them a little reason to listen. That would be much appreciated to spread these beautiful thoughts around the world. Oh, one more thing I nearly forgot. If you enjoyed this, of course, I hope you enjoy it because of our discussions about emotions and things, but a lot of you might also be interested in the real estate or the money-making aspect. So the first time I interviewed Anam about 4 years ago, we did talk a lot more about the technical aspects of investing in real estate. So I'll put the link on the post. If you follow the link in the description to the post, you'll find that link to the old interview on my old project, The Paradise Paradox. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.
Oh,